Hey guys, Dre here with Returning Goldilocks, the road to 513, and as I briefly mentioned in my last video, I'm trying something a little bit different. I will be linking these videos, I think, to my school account. I'm still trying to figure that out and decide if I want to do that or try to do something, just keep it all through YouTube, but I'll figure that out and I'll update accordingly. But I'm going to do a painting today, a little watercolor painting of my last climbing adventure with my buddy Kevin to the Puka Cliffs in Staunton State Park in the South Platte. And I thought what I'd just kind of do is talk through painting and climbing and progression and just things in general. And anyway, this is a first attempt, so we'll see how it goes. Also, to my credit here, I have not watercolor painted in quite some time. I think I'm just going to use this little cheapo set, today. And then I have these watercolors here, which is a little nicer set. But if these end up not working for me, then I'll grab the other ones. But I just realized I don't have water for my watercolors. So hang on, let me go grab that real quick. Okay, back with you. You may or may not be able to hear Dutton, who you met before, barking in the background, but my microphone works pretty good, so I think we're okay. Anyway, I think what I like to do, again, if I can kind of remember back when I used to watercolor all the time, sort of start with just your base colors. I have a little sketch here started. This is a scene from a 5.9 that I led out there, and Kevin's belaying me. So you got a little cliff in this painting. Excuse me, 2 climbers and just a little tiny bit of sky. Not much sky at all. So, which is kind of funny because I looked for my blue watercolor paint for a while and I couldn't find it, and I thought that was going to kind of hose me, but I don't think it's going to. I don't really need it. So yeah, just kind of dipping in the water here. Kind of mix, trying to mix like a, I don't know, like a light gray. I'm just kind of wash this in real light. I'm trying to do my best to where the camera is on me, but also on the painting. I think eventually I could just have it on the painting. It'd probably be the way to go. But this is kind of a test run, like I said. I'm just trying to figure out the best way to do all this and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it was a good day. As I mentioned before, I was painting this 5.9 that we climbed. As part of a couple of recent goals and realizations I've had in my climbing where, up until this point, I've kind of taken a long hiatus from climbing. So it's like even me leading like a 5.5 or a 5.6 route, is kind of a win because I hadn't been on the sharp end in years, like a long time. And so starting out, like getting back into climbing, like those easy leads, 5.6, 5.7, whatever, I was happy with them because it was, just getting back into the groove kind of thing. But then when I sit down and really think about it and break it down, I am at the end of the day trying to climb 5.13, and I can't imagine climbing a bunch of 5.7 is going to get me there. So I've had a recent realization that I need to start. I need to start climbing harder stuff. So I decided to kind of work through the grades. So next couple of trips, like the goal is to get comfy on 9s and 10s. And once that kind of starts to feel solid there and good there, then I'll, move on to harder than that. Probably jump up to 5.11, try to get a couple of 5.11s under my belt. And then, onward and upward until we hit that 5.13 mark, you know what I'm saying? So this is a little sponge brush. I'm kind of like buttering this out a little bit. I've got some little tiny brushes here. So I'm going to kind of go ahead and just start trying to get some of my darks in. I usually won't. Oh, look at there. There's a little penny. You see me looking off screen to my right. My photo reference is right over here on my iPad. Normally I use my phone for my photo references, but I can't today because I'm using it to paint or to film. So I kind of need it over there. A quote I saw recently that was pretty good was, oh, that might be really loud. Okay. That was Penny getting her bone to chew on. Anyway, kind of the idea lately, I sort of thought of this little quote or heard it somewhere, I don't remember what, but was, be more rational in your fear. Getting back into climbing it after such a long time, it's like, a little bit of fear, even like leading 5'6", 5'7", and that's probably natural at the start and it's fine and all that. But, then you see people that, I don't know, you maybe think they shouldn't be leading really at all. And they're like crushing like 5'9", 5'10". And they've probably been climbing more consistently than I have over the past, I'd say 20 years. But at the same time, they've got that figured out. They're being more rational in their fear, especially when you're on a, a sport climb, even if it is something that's harder for me right now, which, I would categorize that as like 5'10" would be harder right now. If you have a bolt at your feet, every time you clip the next bolt, there's really nothing to be afraid of there. You're not going to, you're going to take a little miniature whipper, but everything's going to be fine. And even if you take a little bigger whipper, like your belayer's got a bunch of rope out, then now you just got a cool story for later when you're sipping on some brews at the bar after your day. So yeah, I'm just kind of looking at my reference, and I think you can see a little bit of the painting in my video here. So I'm just kind of blocking in the darker areas. Form all these cracks and ledges and all the things that these rocks are made out of and have forming around them. There's some dark here below my belayer, so I'm going to go ahead and knock that in right now. Went climbing earlier at the climbing gym. I haven't been climbing in a while. I went to a friend's wedding over the weekend and was pretty busy at work before that. So it's kind of a week before, or a week-ish since I've been climbing last, and I was kind of excited because typically if I have that much time off climbing and I get back to it, then I usually climb well, which I did today. I'm feeling refreshed. Okay, there's our darks. I'm going to move to the next level of dark, which would be like a brown. Maybe that's our color right there. I can't tell if that's brown or green. Oh, there's brown. Okay. Yeah, some kind of brown streaks in this rock. This is as much of an experiment video as anything, because it's like, again, like I just kind of mentioned earlier, I haven't painted watercolor in a while. I did a bunch of oil paintings over the past years, and I did consider maybe making some of this oil painting for these little mini landscapes, but I don't know. For right now, I decided to start off with watercolor. Watercolor is a pretty easy medium, especially if you can accept how loose it is and let it kind of get away from you instead of trying to control it. Then Usually works out a little bit better for you. You have to be able to stay loose in your work. You know, some of these artists are, if you worry too much about controlling the medium, then watercolors may not be your guy, may not be your paint. You might want to go with oil, or depending on if you're like super controlling, then maybe you want like pen and ink, because you can, that doesn't do anything other than exactly what you tell it to do. Also, some of you more experienced painters out there might notice I've got matte or clear packing tape to hold my painting down, which is pretty unorthodox. Most watercolor paintings are held down onto a flat surface with painter's tape. Blue painter's tape seems to be the standard for most folks. Anyway, now we need more of a gray, so I'm going to try that. That liquid watercolor set over there has white watercolor paint in it, which I thought, the first time I discovered that, I was like, wow, that's wild. I didn't know such a beast existed, which is kind of saying a lot because I've been an artist for my entire life. So I don't know if white watercolor paint is new or just something that's eluded me for 53 years. It's quite possible. Both options are possible. That it's new, or that I just wasn't paying attention and didn't notice that they had white watercolor paint for the first 5 decades of my existence, which sounds crazy. All right, here's some more lights, grays, mix them in with these browns. This is kind of fun. I do like working in watercolor. It's like a super sketchy style. Not sketchy in that you're afraid it's going to mug you in a dark alley later, but sketchy and sketchy. Like I mentioned earlier, you want to stay loose with it. If you try to go too controlled with your watercolor, you will lose your mind. Oh boy. Oh boy. We got some action in the backyard. Our guard dogs are going to go make sure everything's cool. You hear Dutton out there? He's got a big voice. All right, I'm going to grab a little bit bigger brush. I'm just trying to get a little better coverage here. Trying to keep you guys from being too bored watching a watercolor video for too long. I don't know. I would think maybe it's not boring. I mean, I guess if I'm doing the effort to actually do it, probably deep down, I don't think it's all that boring. And certainly if you're interested in being a painter, it's probably not boring either. If it gets too boring, I'm sure Dutton, the Great Dane, will excite it up a little bit by barking at something. Barking at something, or is he barking at nothing? These are all questions. What'd you see out there, buddy? Everything okay? Is your job done here as a guard dog? All right. I got my basics down. I got all the rock covered. I think I'm going to take this little blending brush while the painting's still a little bit wet and just kind of flick it around a little bit, and that gives it some cool textures. Makes your painting more interesting, I think. I feel like Bob Ross a little bit. Happy little climbers. Let's paint the happy little climbers. All right, yeah, dude, I'm stoked on that so far. Okay, there's a little tiny bit of blue sky up in the corner here. I'm going to go ahead and knock that in because I think there's a lot of oranges. How many of you out there in painting world really pay attention to your complementary colors when you paint. So, your complementary colors are those that are your primaries and your secondaries that are across from each other from the wheel. Sorry, it might be loud again. Dutton is drinking water behind me. And if I know him as well as I think I do, when he goes to drink water, it's not really fast. Like, he could be back there for a while. These are the times that I hope I bought the right microphone and it's really working, and just trying to mostly collect my voice. If you can see my painting here, you see that I knocked in a little sky, and then I am putting blue in some of the rocks. To me, I think it's always a great idea to have a little bit of your background color in your foreground. It ties it together nicely. And if you look at the lighting or think about lighting out there in nature, it's some of these lighter gray rocks are gonna catch some of that blue reflection from the sky, and sort of translate as like a very cool gray on the rock texture there. There it is. I like that right there. Let's see. There's my little tiny brush. That's what I was looking for. We're going to make what appears to be climbers on here. A little right here. Little shadow from underneath the helmet. Looks like his back leg's pretty dark on my belayer, so knock that in as a shadowy. There's his back arm. Me, I'm wearing dark blue pants up here leading. Those are going to go in as black. Kevin's other leg. Wipe my brush with a little bit of ground texture there. My shirt was blue, so I'll pull a little more blue into the painting. That's exciting. And Kevin has a bright ass orange jacket on. So I'm going to try to create that. You see what I mean? He's back there. He is thirsty always. All right, there's good enough for the climbers. I don't want to get too detailed because in my brain, especially when you're tattooing, that's what I do for a living, so that's why I keep saying that. In my brain, when you're painting, especially with watercolor, I paint a lot with, as I mentioned earlier, oil, and I like to be pretty impressionistic in my approach there as well. And so I think too detailed, and it's weird, and I'm weird, so I admit that, but I think if you go too detailed in paintings and like these hyper-realism artists, it just looks, I think two things happen. I think it looks kind of like it stops looking like a painting at one point, or at some point rather, and then it doesn't even look like, I don't know, I think with watercolor, if you do too much dry brush and you get too much details in there, it starts looking amateur. It starts looking like a grade school kid did it, and it's not, they've always told me, or I've always learned that there's, you have student grade artists and you have professional grade artists, and you can look at most bodies of work from both those types of artists and tell which they are. And I think too much detail will make you kind of look like you're a student grade artist. Our job as artists is to kind of, I always thought, trick the eye. Take a two-dimensional surface here, such as a piece of paper or a canvas, and apply paint in a way that anybody that looks at it believes that it's what you were trying to paint. So you're trying to just trick their eye a little bit. Some of these details are a little too sharp. I don't like that. So I'm going to fix that. Um, all right. I'm going to give a little bit more. There we go. Just want our climber guy to be a little more dynamic looking. A layer too. Maybe he's letting some rope out. There we go. Oh yeah. That's the ticket. All right, now this is granite, and granite forms a lot of times. I mean, I guess depending on where you are, but most granite I've climbed got a little yellow lichen on it, and people are really liking that. It's my dad joke for the episode. I used to climb a lot in the Wichita Mountains in Oklahoma. There was a lot of lichen out there, especially in a place called the Narrows, so it's by water, so that's going to grow more out there. There was a whole wall out there called Lichen Wall. That's how much lichen it had on it. Anyway, now I'm kind of getting in my oranges here. I got a little ridiculous there with that swap of orange, but that's okay. It's painting. That was the other downfall to me in my brain. If you're like getting too realistic with your painting or too reeled in with your paintings, is like that's another downfall. Is I've heard good artists say, that's the camera's job. The camera's job is to do photorealism. Your job is to do a painting of it. So if you're going to set out to paint something, then do just that, paint it. If you want it like photorealism, why would you waste the time sitting here just like knocking that in, tweaking it, banging your head against the wall, when you could simply just go take a photograph of it and call it done? Because you're not going to get more photorealistic than a camera. I've seen many paintings that get very close to that. There are photorealistic painters out there that can do the job of the camera. But again, why would you, man? It's a lot of work. And painters don't get paid that much. So just ROI. You got to work on your ROI in painting, in life. You try to get out what you're putting in, All right. We have a little bit of greenery in here, so I'm going to try to put some of that in there. Indicate some shrubbery. Still have a lot of blue on my brush. That's another thing I like to do, is like not get all the paint off my brush with color changes. The reason being is, again, you're carrying, like, I always splatter my paintings too when I get close to the end. It just gives a little texture to that rock and to the painting in general. I kind of want to work on this corner right here because it's starting to look like a person. But there's a slight mellow, like, there's a slight corner on here. It's not quite like a 90 degree, so it doesn't have like a full-on 90-degree shadow on it. It's just a little bit of a corner. Like it's probably 50 degrees out from the main wall. And so I just wanted to do a slight blue shadow on there to kind of indicate that. All right, I think we're getting close. I'm going to go ahead and kind of take my dry brush again and get some cool elements in there. All right, yeah, quick little painting. That's all I was kind of going for today. I might pour a little white now. If I have any left, I might need to buy more. Yeah, let's try that. All right, I'm going to get a really dry brush, a really dry, fine brush. This little guy. Maybe the one I've been using. No, that we don't need this one. I'm going to go ahead and sign it. And then we'll be done. I will make a video of this. Probably put it up on my YouTube channel for the Return of Baldylocks. I don't know. Again, I might do that just as a sample of like what I'm trying to do moving forward. But we'll see. I might throw this up there tonight. I might not. All right. Well, let me get my watercolor out of the way. And then I wonder if I can untape this. You know what? I'm just going to show you the thing. So here's what we made in art class today, guys. If you can see that. There's our little painting of us climbing. Another thing I want to do by, doing these paintings and kind of talking through them and talking through the climbing day experience is sell the paintings. So at the end of the day, these are all for sale. If you got a special connection with that climbing area or you just want to support me as an artist, you'll be able to do that. These are, little, I don't know, what is that, like a 5x8 maybe inch watercolor painting, original. Probably let the original go for, let's say, like $100. And then if there's enough response, I can make prints as well. And this will be applicable down the line. I don't think anybody's going to be like dying to get a bunch of prints made of this or anything like that. But you never know. We are all our own worst critic in painting and in climbing, I think, in life in general. So anyway, thanks a lot for joining in today. I really, really appreciate it. Like, follow, subscribe, comments. This is a great episode for some comments. If you like to watercolor paint, if you like to climb, I'd love to know your interest in something like this. Like, is this like waste of time, or is this something you guys, enjoy and think you can maybe tune in for more? Either way, let me know. Thanks again for joining, and see you on the next one.